Hey there, welcome to the She Gets Business Women We Love interview series. And I am delighted to be here today with Carla Brauer, who is a former student of mine, but more importantly, the CEO and founder of Dermestidarium, skull cleaning and Hidecraft. And today we are talking about how to create sustainable growth for your small business. I work with a lot of people who are just starting off their businesses and oftentimes are working in some other capacity while they figure out their idea. And there is certainly a learning curve that happens, a trial and error learning curve that happens when you're in that stage. So I'm super excited to welcome Carla. Carla, how are you?
I'm so good, Wendy. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm loving your necklace. Did you make it?
No, it was a gift from a friend many years ago, but I wear it all the time.
Was it a gift prior to you starting this business?
It was, actually. So
that's amazing.
Somebody knew me all too well.
That's incredible. So, Carla, tell us a little bit about your business. What is Dermestidarium?
So basically, you are. And, one of my hard-learned business lessons has been don't name your business something unpronounceable and unspellable because my poor clients, I swear, thank God they just know my name. So basically, I am a professional bone cleaner, and I take raw skulls and the whole package basically of what contains bones and animal. I don't do humans. And I clean them, and I have a small army of flesh-eating beetles that are my hardworking assistants. So they do a lot of the hard work, but I do a lot more than they do.
And I actually learned a new Scrabble word from you, which is that type of beetle, dermestid beetle?
The dermestid beetles, yeah. If you can get that in a Scrabble game, that is amazing.
Ooh, I'm up for the challenge. So how long have you been doing this? What inspired you to start this business? And I also think it's funny you mentioned that about humans, because I was telling somebody last night about your business, and they're like, "Oh, do they do human bodies for the hospitals?" I said, "No."
No, thank God, no. I have to draw the line somewhere, and people ask me all the time, "Do you do human skulls?" And I'm like, no, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me to, and thank God that's not really a big part of my target market.
I think I'd have psychological trouble with that personally, but I guess there's people who do all kinds of work that, well, like this, I would never think of this. So what inspired you to create this company? What were you doing at the time? And tell us about how it unfolded for you.
So basically it started as a hobby and kind of something I wanted to do for fun for myself, as you do. And I was working at a goat meat ranch. I was an intern at a commercial goat meat ranch in California. So I was living and working there, and there was one day we were slaughtering some large male goats that had really beautiful long horns. And, and part of the process, I was like, well, it'd be really cool to keep their skulls. I had no idea what I was doing. So I took the heads and I built this cage, and I put them in there, and I was like, the vultures and the ants and all of these creatures are just going to magically make it into this perfect white skull. So that's not what happens, as it turns out. And, but it was kind of the start of my first try. And I worked on farms for many years doing live work internships and just learning about how to raise animals sustainably and working with livestock and growing gardens. So that was kind of my main focus, but it was kind of a side project to take the animals who we were using for meat and keep their skulls. And there were many trials and tribulations trying to figure out how to do that in a way that wasn't horrific or ended terribly.
Sounds messy.
It was messy. It was stinky. It was all of those things. It still is, really. I mean, there's no getting away from that part.
And how long ago was that?
I feel like that was about 10 years ago now. It seems like another lifetime. And, I've been doing it off and on since then, but only really in the last 4 or 5 years have I started to really realize that this wasn't just a hobby anymore, and that it seemed like it was wanting to be something a little more than that.
Oh, I love that when you ask people hey, do you have any hobbies, or what do you like to do for fun? I've never heard anybody say I like to collect goat heads. And experiment with different ways to remove the flesh from them. And I had
totally normal.
Totally normal. Well, but you said something. You said sustainable. When we were talking earlier, you said one of the values you have for as a company is no waste, and this idea of sustainability and using the whole animal. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So basically, I, for a long time, many, many lifetimes ago, it feels like, I was vegetarian, even vegan for quite some time. So, I mean, everybody who hears that about me is like super shocked because look at me now. But I did come back around to eating meat. But when I did, it was in a really thoughtful and a more sustainable way that I felt good about, because I didn't feel great about factory farms. I still think, if I can avoid that, amazing. We raise our own animals here. We have a small homestead in Dallas, Oregon. So we had sheep for a while, so we raised them for meat. We have ducks and geese and even pigeons that we raise for squab. And I'm a hunter, so every time we raise an animal, we try to do as much justice to it and pay it as much respect as possible, which for me means not wasting anything. And sometimes I can get really creative with that. So that means eating all the things, using the livers and kidneys and hearts, tanning the hides, and of course using the skulls. And so that was kind of what first inspired me to do this. And, now it's to kind of become a hobby, and I have freezers full of severed heads, and
that's amazing. Different from your normal refrigerator, right?
A little bit. Yeah. No, they do not mix.
And I read somewhere that you learned about these beetles from watching the TV series Bones.
That was the first time I'd ever heard that there were beetles that do it. And, I watched that show on and off like way back in the day, and I remember the part of the forensics was to clean the bones, get them down to something you can really look at and see the nitty-gritty details of what might imply like an injury or a homicide or something. And somewhere that got filed in the back of my brain, because then as I started to try to clean the skulls via vultures and anthills and boiling and burying and all of the things that I experimented with, I always knew there were these beetles that would like really do the job. It just took me a really long time to figure out that I could mail order them from Alaska.
That's amazing. So how do you find somebody in Alaska who had the beetles? Well, you probably went on the Google, right?
You can find literally anything on the internet. So yes, Google was very helpful. And, now it's kind of, it's easy to find, and there are tons of people who do what I do. And there's lots of resources and forums on Facebook that help people learn how to clean skulls. But I feel like back in the day, like I felt like I was the only person in the world who wanted to do this. So now it's much easier to access, but back then it took some hard work. And then it kind of, and at this time, I'm not owning my own home. So to go to your landlords and say, hey guys, is it cool if I order a colony of flesh-eating beetles and just, I'll keep them out of the house, I promise. It was a conversation. And, I told my landlord at the time what I wanted to do with them. And I was like, because I was I was renting a farm basically and working on that and trying to make that a business. That didn't work out. But I was like, I kind of feel like maybe people will even pay me to clean some of their skulls. There's lots of hunters in the area, and maybe I could clean some and sell them. And he just kind of like shook his head, and he was like, that'll never work.
Have you talked to him recently about it?
I hope one day he finds out all by himself. I don't feel the need to reach out and gloat, but I wouldn't be sorry if he found out that this was actually working out well for me.
Give me his address. Maybe I'll send him.
Right.
And then I also had heard that you did something for a horror show.
So there was an interview that I did where it was implied that I worked on a horror show. That was actually not completely accurate, and then they never issued a correction or anything. But what I had said was the first time I ever cleaned a skull, it was a horror show. Oh. And the fact that it was a disaster and a huge mess. And one day I had photos of it, and one day I'll find them, and they make the best Halloween decor, because I think I had photos of like 3 vultures like perched on this like decaying gray gross skull with like maggots everywhere. And I was like, when does it become the clean skull that I want to take home and put on my wall? Like, I don't understand why that's not just happening.
A lot of trial and error in creating the product and services that you provide now, which I think
Absolutely
all small business builders can really appreciate. And you had said also that you had this earlier business, which was, did you say bed and breakfast? Is that what?
No, somehow the name implied that, and this is not the first time somebody thought I was running a bed and breakfast, but I had a small farm, and I was doing farmers markets and selling rare breed chicken meat. It was a great idea in my head at the time, but as I think you probably know, and many entrepreneurs experience, you get lots of great ideas, and not all of them are great, like in reality. So my Dermestidarium business is certainly not my first attempt at running a business and having my entrepreneurial spirit come out. It's actually the first one that actually pays me. So
I actually love that.
A lot of trial and error.
I love that, because my next question is what do you think that you learned from that experience that made you be more effective at Dermestidarium, starting and running Dermestidarium?
I think the hardest lesson that I still learn over and over is that just because I think something is a good idea doesn't mean the rest of the world is going to agree. And I've learned to really let go of ideas that I think are great. It's obviously not panning out. And at a certain point, I just had to kind of throw in the towel on certain things and look at the numbers and look at how much time I'm spending and how much stress is causing, and just realize that it's time to try to do something different.
Yeah.
And I think, us as entrepreneurs, we're always full of great ideas. Yeah. And I think it's important to not only be generating those ideas, but also to be really looking at them as neutrally and unbiasedly as you can, and ask yourself, like, is this something I really could see a future doing? And so far, Dermestidarium is the first one that I am like, oh my God, this is actually like becoming profitable. I have a lot of great clients, and I could see myself doing this in the future. And of course, this is not the end. Like, I'm already looking at new things to add to the business, and always have 1,000 ideas, and focusing on doing something well and repeating it until it becomes something kind of easy and natural is hard when you have a million ideas and you want to do all of them.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, with coaching and my coaching, business coaching, and in my classes, we talk a lot about customer validation, which is really who do you think, I always start with a marketing plan, because my point is if there is no market no buyers for what you're actually selling, you don't have a business. You have a very expensive hobby.
Yes.
And some of those things, you've worked on a ranch, and you've had experience being around, hunters, and you live in a more rural community. So you have an awareness about that already. But I'm guessing that even with that, there are some of things that you've had to validate being out in the market. For example, did you start with skull cleaning and then move to products? Because you sell also these beautiful skulls. Did you start with one or the other? Or did you say you have ideas for adding to the product line? So what's that process been like for you?
So it's a lot of trial and error. And every time, I do periodically try to organize my thoughts and put them into this, okay, this is what this year is going to look like. Here's what the first quarter is going to be. These are the things I'm going to do that are going to bring in money. And I'm never right. It doesn't stop me from trying to have a plan, but I always have to realize that my best laid plans are always going to have to be flexible, because nothing ever goes exactly as I think it's going to. And some things work better and some things don't work at all. And you just kind of have to roll with it. But yeah, I think having the ability to kind of slowly ease into things and see if they really pan out before going full tilt and putting all of your emotional energy and money and time into it is also super important.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So you have an amazing Instagram feed, which I
Oh,
think tells a
thank you.
lot about the story, and your website is fantastic, and we'll show it in a second. But I wanted to ask you, how on the marketing side, like how do you make people aware of your work? Obviously, you've got social, but I don't imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see a lot of your target market like hanging out on Instagram, or are they?
There are definitely clients on Instagram that I've gotten. I would say more for retail, and I don't do as much retail right now because doing commissioned work for hunters has actually been my main focus from last year, and I'm still recovering from that. So,
Yeah.
but I do plan on doing more retail, and Instagram and Facebook are probably more. If they're going to bring me business, it's probably more that way. I do think that a lot of my, even, the target market that isn't necessarily, super Instagram savvy, if they do have a place where they can go and see my work and, see that I have a following, see that I do have clean skulls that I send out the door, it probably makes them feel a little more confident, even if they're not super active or engaging on there, to hire me because, well, they can see that I do have work that I can show them. It's kind of like a little
Yeah.
mini resume.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you do have, two customer bases you had shared. One is the hunter. So if we talk about the hunter for a second, who is
Yeah.
that person? Like, what's a person that really embodies an average customer for that side?
Well, I'm lucky with that target market because I'm part of it. So, the hunters who I work with, most of them are local. So they live in the Salem area or even from the Portland area. They're the kind of people who want to keep a memory of the hunt. And, maybe it's not every animal that they kill, but maybe it's one that's special because it was like their kid's first harvest, or, it was like an animal they shot with their dad, or there's something special or memorable about that animal. Sometimes those animals are just beautiful and have amazing antlers and they just want to have them on their wall. A lot of times there's great stories behind them, and that's part of what makes me super happy. I never get tired of my customers coming in and telling me about their amazing hunting adventures. And I like to think that giving them their clean skull back is a way for me to be a small part of helping preserve and, extend that memory for them and their kids.
Yeah, and does that skew male?
Yes, I would love to say that I have tons of amazing women hunters coming through my door, but they are by far my market is men. And I think that just reflects the hunting community. More and more women are getting involved in it, but for now, I think it's a male dominated world out there.
Yeah, that's funny because like I'm not a hunter, and I eat meat, and like you, I look for and buy. Well, I buy, you probably make, but I grow. But I buy meat where I know where the meats come from. I know the ranch. I know the treatment of the animal. I know what the animal's eating, and I'm lucky to be able to do that. But I'm wondering also, like in your business, I mean, there are people who are very anti-hunting. And one of the things that I really love about your business is this focus on, the animal, using the whole animal. And I'm wondering in your business, have you had any people like saying your business is terrible for value-based reasons, or do you just not come across that?
I've been really lucky that my business has not had anyone, like come after me because I support hunters or because I harvest my own animals. I do know that there are people in, my Instagram feed and my Facebook feed who probably aren't super on board with hunting, but I am really also aware every time I post something about hunting to make it respectful, to, not show, something super gory or something that's going to cause somebody to have like a really like, oh my God, I can't believe you posted that reaction.
Mm-hmm.
As many horribly disgusting things as I do around here, I never post the graphic stuff because that's not really what I want to be showing people.
Yeah.
It's the reality of what I do. If I'm the only one who has to see that, that's great because I don't need to subject my clients to it.
That's incredible. And the other thing is, I think you said that you also had, so on the retail side, I mean, I'm thinking about this past Christmas, you had these beautiful little ornaments that were, they almost look like silver dipped tiny bird schools?
Yeah, so it's kind of a Dermestidarium tradition now. I've been doing it for 6 years. Every Christmas, I come out with bird skull Christmas ornaments, and they're usually quail skulls. I've occasionally done pheasant, but they're just a little bit bigger and clunkier to work with. So yeah, this year will be no different. They probably around September, October, the quail skull ornaments will come out, and historically they've been pretty inexpensive and done in like a silver mimicking paint. This year is the first year I'm doing them in real silver.
Wow.
So that's going to be kind of an exciting adventure.
That's very cool. I can't wait to see them. When you started out your business, so you know from taking my class that I'm always like, become an LLC, get your business legit, etc. So when you started your business, did you do that? Or at what point? Please tell me you're an LLC now.
So I am still a sole proprietor because I do plan on doing it. The problem is I had just renewed my license. So they were like, if you just wait for your license to be up for renewal, then you're going to save yourself like X amount of dollars. And I'm still a cheapskate. So, I'm like, oh, save money, I'll wait. But I do totally intend to switch over to an LLC as soon as my current license runs out.
So if you're watching this, people out in cyberspace in Oregon, it's $100 to become a limited liability company, and it takes about 5 minutes online, and it protects your personal assets from liability, because we are a suing society here in the United States. So, Carla, I'm going to ask about that later.
I know. I knew I was going to get in trouble for something.
No, you're not in trouble. So you have several thousand employees now, correct?
Well, okay. Don't tell the IRS about them, though, because they get paid in food.
So you started out with a couple of hundred deals.
Yes. Yeah.
And now they're in the thousands.
Yeah, I mean, the number fluctuates, and I never really know how many are in there. They just do their own thing. They have their heating lamps and heating pads, and in the winter, they're like far more comfortable than I am, and they eat really well. They get lots of venison, lots of elk, lots of birds. They are very good workers. I do pay them well in food.
So how are they in containers that, like, you put the skull into a container, and I mean, basically, how do you stop them from escaping?
Well, the nice thing is they can't really fly unless it's super hot out. So if it's like 90 degrees out on a hot summer day, they will try to take off. I'm not really sure what inspires them about the heat, but that's the only time that they're capable of flying, is if it's like over 80 degrees. So I have big containers for them. I have lots of bug netting, because half of the battle isn't so much keeping them in, it's keeping flies and other insects out. And occasionally I still find spiders in there that are trying to eat my beetles. And it's not great. Oh yeah, like spiders can get anywhere. I'm like convinced that they can get through walls.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And so in your property, one of the things that we talked about from an operations perspective is, in order for you to scale your business, you have to have more space for beetles. Yeah.
Yes.
So talk to me about
for
that.
Storage, because the beetles can get through, a couple of elk skulls in a couple of weeks. But if I have a day when I get 8 elk skulls coming in through the door, and, they're not small with their giant antlers, and, the beetles can start working on a couple of them, but then the next day, like 4 more come in, it becomes kind of a storage situation.
Yeah.
So this past year, I added 2 outbuildings to our property, which already had some outbuildings on it. It's starting to look like chaos over here. And I added one, and then within like a couple of weeks into hunting season, I was like, oh crap, I probably should order another one. So I added another building, and we have a barn that, like, I basically take over like everything. Come hunting season, I'm like, nothing is off limits. My poor wife is kind of suffering through this with me. Like, just no, she's very supportive, but she's not a hunter. She has she will eat the meat. That is like all.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't look in the guest room. That might be full of elk. I'm actually walling off a part of our upstairs because I need more storage up there. And, like, I cannot have enough space. One of these days, I would love to just have, a gigantic shop that is like enough space for everything I do, but I kind of feel like that might end up being on our next property.
That's amazing. So you had mentioned that you're a cheapskate, but I don't see that as a cheapskate. I think that is being fiscally responsible and having a clear understanding of your startup and operational costs. So let's reframe that. So when you started this business, you were doing something else, and it was about 4 years ago when you started. Was that right? When you started saying like, I think I can do this for real.
Yeah. That was the first time I started being like, I think I need to start running this like a business, because as a hobby, it's like, you kind of have to choose, like, am I going to like dedicate so much of my time to a hobby that doesn't make me money, or am I going to try to make money from it and actually like do this?
Totally.
So I decided to just like do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was working full time at that time, and it was a job that I was probably putting in at least 50 to 60 hours a week. So I was like above and beyond full time, and it was super stressful. And I mean, I wasn't doing anything like the volume I'm doing now. That would not have worked. But it was still, even if I had a couple of people hiring me to do stuff, it was still coming home from a long day and like going into, at the time it was like a little sad basement that I was working out of. And like, you'd like hit your head on the ceiling if you weren't careful. So it was a lot of stress, and, I really had to question whether or not I wanted to commit to this, because I was like, it would be really easy to just not do it and just work my really exhausting job and make that money, and that's fine.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. And so when you then made the mental shift from considering this as it's a hobby to, you know what, I gotta have this be a business. But you're still being very mindful of your costs. What are the things, I'll ask the question differently. If current Carla went back to Carla maybe three years ago, let's say 3 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, what would you tell her to do in terms of setting up her business? Like, what about
Become
software?
an LLC.
There's still time. There's today.
I think I would have told myself to just relax a little bit more, because I tend to run a little bit anxious, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and I am my own worst critic. And, I have been extremely lucky that all of my clients that I've ever had have been just like super supportive and amazing and love what I give them. But like, meanwhile, I am like, oh my God, nothing is perfect enough. So I would tell my past self to chill and just do your best and try not to stress out so much. I still tell myself that every day, and it works, here and there. But as far as how I did build the business and how I financed everything, I don't feel like I would do anything that differently. I think it was slower than I would have liked it to be, but I also feel like, everything that I've done, I've financed myself. I've never taken out a loan. I've never had, asked for investments, and I don't think I would have it any other way. And maybe it's just because I've always been super financially independent. I'm not used to asking anyone for help. The idea of owing money, like, we owe on our mortgage and that's it. And that like is enough. And any other kind of debt would just really stress me out. And I think that, it's already kind of stressful running a business, but when you like you have to make payments on the stuff that you put on your credit card to get the business going, that would just be like more than I could take.
Yeah, I'm right with you. And it's amazing to me. I mean, I think at last count, I had like 400 students over the last year. And we're always talking. Yeah, I know. And we're always talking about money. How do you get money for your business? And it's amazing to me the amount of people are like, oh, well, I'll just go to the bank and I'll get a loan. And like, no,
God.
you won't, because firstly, they won't lend to you. And secondly, you have a super clear understanding of what your startup costs and your operational costs are, so that you know how much money you need to run this business. And then, people will say like, oh, should I just quit my job and just go for it? And I'll ask the questions like, do you have 6 months emergency savings? Do you know what your startup costs are? Do you know what your operational costs are? Do you have a clear plan about how you plan to, actually make money in your business? And the answer is no. I'm always like, keep that day job.
Yeah.
Unless you have the cushion of, like some people have, like I have a partner who's, will support me for X amount of time or that kind of thing. I'm very fiscally conservative about that.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because as entrepreneurs, we are often risk takers. You know, you
Yeah.
kind of have to be
Yeah.
to even want to start your own business and to
Mhm.
take the leap and, start a side hustle or quit your day job. And I think sometimes that does bleed into our financial decisions. And I've always been, a risk taker in some ways, but I've always been like super financially conservative. And I think part of that is I've just never made a lot of money. So,
Mhm.
not having a lot of money to throw around is kind of my default. And,
Yeah.
I certainly don't make a lot of money now. It's not like I'm like, running a big tech startup and making millions, but I have a long history of making do with what I earn. And I think that's a really important thing as a business owner to bring into that decision.
Yeah, for sure. But there's also a lot of mental there too. I mean, so much of what you've said so far is like the mind shift from moving from a hobby to a business,
Mhm.
the mind shift of how you deal with money, the mind shift of how you deal with you're like, I would just tell myself to chill out. you
Right.
know all of that is mental, and so important to be aware of, to acknowledge. you know it's hard. I think it's hard in those early days to be able to say, like, okay, today I feel like I just want to give up. This is a mental thing, and
Hmm.
let's look at this different. That's awesome. So when you are running your business, and I don't want your secret money numbers, but in general, for your business, I know that you had said that your revenue has increased 4x. Is that year over year?
So for last year, my sales did increase about 4 times what I'm used to. And there's a lot of factors in that. And one of
Mm-hmm.
which was we bought our house in 2015, which
Mm-hmm.
was the best decision I'd ever made as far
Yeah.
as my business goes. And that was
Yeah.
actually part of the reason we decided to purchase properties because, doing bone cleaning in a rental is super, super insecure.
Yeah.
It was a
For
miracle
sure.
I ever got to do this as a renter.
Yeah.
So, securing property that I could for sure do my business on was a big deal. Um, and now I took it down a different road. Now I don't remember what the
No, you're
question
fine. So
was.
we're talking about your growth, basically your expenses versus your profit.
Oh, yeah. So I basically didn't do anything with my business the first year we lived here because I was remodeling,
Fair
still
enough.
remodeling,
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of space. And then the next year in 2016, I kind of did like a soft opening where, I did a little bit of outreach, not too much because I wanted to kind of play it safe. And then last year, I didn't do a lot of marketing or anything, but the word got out, and I didn't realize how much of an awesome hunting community we even had around here until all these people started to come by, and they're like, "My buddy told me that you're here, and I'm
That's
super excited to
awesome.
have you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I got really lucky with word of mouth marketing and just a really great community of people who support me and brought a lot of business. And I kind of have this feeling that next year all of their friends might come too. So I'm super excited for that. And it's been great. But like I said, I've had to do a lot of remodeling and buying outbuildings. So profit wise, it still didn't work out great for me last year. But now I have some of the infrastructure that I needed to invest in so that hopefully this year will be much more profitable.
I think that's so relatable because I'm thinking about uh, two women company founders. They have a nut butter company, and I'm thinking about another woman, a student of mine, who makes these beautiful handmade little girl dresses, right? And they want to scale their businesses, but operationally, there's some big challenges. On the nut butter side, they do their production on Wednesdays, and if someone's sick, then no nut butter is being made, right? No nut butter. They can't fulfill their sales orders. And then same thing for the other person, not nut butters, but in terms of dresses, is that she wants to grow her business, but currently she's doing everything. And so even if she were to bring on somebody to help sew, they still need to understand what the process is. She needs to know where her operational inefficiencies are. So I think that's so important for being able to create a strong foundation for your business. The fact that you own your property now, and you don't have to beg somebody who the next month can tell you your your structures have to go and your beetle
Right.
houses. So that's amazing. And so you have goals for the future. So you're wanting to, grow this. This has been started from a hobby, move to side gig, move to gig, side-ish gig. And the goal is to make this your full-time, this is my company, right?
Well, it's kind of become that way already. So I I still have, a day job, although now my day job is kind of my side gig.
Yeah, I swapped them.
Yeah. So, I still have, a regular W-2 paycheck coming in, which makes me super happy because, that's a little bit of added security. So if my business is very seasonal. I'm going to try to be proactive and find ways that I can fill in seasonal gaps between hunting seasons. But right now, it's really geared more toward the fall. So the rest of the year, I need to find other things to fill it in. So while I'm getting that figured out, I still have some income coming in. And the other thing is, I was pretty lucky in that the job that, was my primary day job was a job that I loved. And so I'm not in the typical, like, get me out of here, I'll do anything to leave. I actually love my employer. I love the job. All my coworkers are really good friends. So I kind of wanted to keep a toe in there just to, have that connection. And it's hard to not have coworkers. You don't realize how much of your social life just revolves around work when all of a sudden you're at home by yourself and you're like, oh, there's no one here.
Especially if you live, further out. But I think that's true.
Yeah.
Even another person I'll be interviewing soon runs a community for women business builders, and that's one of the main points there is that how isolating it can be. When you are building something, and oftentimes the people around you, be that your partner, or your spouse, or your parents, or your friends, they're not your target audience necessarily.
Right.
So they don't necessarily have the same view or desires or wants as your target customer, but they're full of opinions. It sounds like you're luckier with that, but I know that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's just a really hard thing for, anyone, friends, partners, family to relate to when you're working from home and, they go off and do their 9-to-5 job and they come home. And like, for me, it's hard for me still. Like, I still get up in the morning and I know I have, all these things I need to do for my business, but I'm like, well, there are dirty dishes and the dogs need to go out for a walk. And like, how many things can I distract myself with? So.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Wednesdays is the day that my husband is gone because he partially works from home too. And my kiddo, somebody else picks up the kiddo from school. And so that's my laundry day as well as my interview day. So
awesome.
I can totally appreciate that. So I guess this is amazing. And again, I keep saying it's so relatable, but it is. People might say like, well, my business isn't, flesh eating beetles, on animal carcasses. But it is about like this mental shift that happens and trying new things and risking, but taking calculated risks, well considered risks. You didn't just decide like, hey, I'm gonna spend a bunch of money, and you've really started this from trying some things and now growing it further. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
So my last question is for you is if you were to be talking to somebody who's starting their own business, they're in that hobby to side gig, dreaming about the main gig, what advice would you give them?
Oh, that's a good question, because there are so many things I would ask them and want to tell them. It's not going to be the sexiest thing, but I would tell them, first and foremost, make sure that your personal finances are really under control, really in order.
Yes.
I could not have done this business if I, didn't have good enough credit to buy the house, or didn't have enough savings to buy our house, or, if I was not comfortable living within what I could make with my business. So, personal finances are so important to know and really, really feel comfortable with, because when you run a business, you have to worry about your personal finances, which are completely tied to your business, and the business finances, which are like a whole different world.
Yeah.
So that would be my number one, like, make sure you are being careful, make sure you know what you're talking about, get educated. I know a lot of people hate talking about money and hate thinking thinking about it, and they hate doing their taxes, and I hate that too. But I also feel like, it's my responsibility to like be really educated and to always be trying to learn. And there's no way that my business can be successful if I don't know how to manage money. So
love that. That to me is
super
sexy.
fun. I know. Get excited, guys.
I have to tell you, I mean, that actually is very sexy to me because, I'm actually creating curriculum for an online class right now called She Gets Profit.
Awesome.
And yeah, and so it starts with, your mindset around money. And then, because when people don't have good money practices, which lots of people don't, then it's always tied to something emotional, whether or not you acknowledge it or aware of it. Could very often be subconscious, like, I grew up without money. And I mean, for me as well, like I have not been, what's the word? I have been in a strong financial position for quite a while. And still my biggest fear is because I grew up really poor. Like the electricity's off. Okay, no lights for a while. When's that happening? So for me, my biggest fear is still like I'm going to be living in my car, and and my kid's going to be living in the car with me, and I can't take care of her. That is and it's irrational, but it's there. So the mindset piece, and then so important is understanding your personal budget so that you can create, a workable foundation for a business budget. So this class will take people from mindset to personal budget, your own spending habits, tools and processes you can use to manage that, and then take them all the way through financial literacy, like financial statements for their business, and specifically around the P&L. Like,
awesome.
Yes, but do it in a fun way, a non-intimidating, fun, learning way, so that all of the, I think when people hear about those kinds of subjects, they just imagine like, oh my God, it's a horrible, horrible class. I want to make it really fun and
awesome.
I love that you said that. Thank you so much. Carla, I want to take just a quick moment and show your beautiful website, which is incredible. So hold on one sec. I love that we have this technology where we can do this kind of stuff right now. So I'm sharing my screen, and first I'm going to show your website. So it's so well done. Come here, window. There we go. Can you see your website?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's so beautiful. I love your logo. Did you know anything about marketing, or how did you actually get this wonderful website created?
So the website is based on WordPress, and it's kind of, now I'm forgetting the name of it. I think it's a shopkeeper is what the template is called.
Shopify or
the shopkeeper? It's like a specific WordPress theme that you can purchase that is geared toward online sales. Yeah. And, online sales aren't a super big part of my website. There is a shop and a cart and all that stuff. So I like that it included all of that infrastructure. I used to do graphic and web design back in the day for money here and there. And if you can just pay $75 for a beautiful template and customize it to your heart's delight, like, just do it.
Yeah, totally.
Save yourself a couple of thousands of hours of stress and go the easy route sometimes.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's got everything you could want here. It's your social up here, wholesale and contact, your story, exactly what you do. I mean, I was just fascinated just going through here. Like, what the heck is a European mount? What's dry preservation? I love how you call this skull stories.
Yes, and that is something that I don't have live yet, but it's something I've been trying to get time to work on forever. I really want to give people an outlet to share the stories of the skulls they have in their lives. So whether it be a beautiful European mount of something that you hunted, or if it's just something you bought because you think it's super cool. Like, people often are like, why would you ever want a skull to be like decoration? Or why would you want to keep something skull? And it would just be really cool to give people an opportunity to see the logic there.
Yeah. I love, here's your ornaments, your beautiful ornaments here. from last year. And then your social feed, your Instagram feed is so beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
It really is. And so what are these feathers?
So those are feathers from a parrot who, the parrot I believe was about 40 years old before he died. And the owner of the parrot basically grew up with them and brought the parrot in after he passed away for me to do a full skeletal cleaning for them. So, you know, I don't always work with hunters. I do work with a lot of people whose pets pass away and they want to keep a skull or the skeleton as mementos, which, you know, if you think about it, isn't that weird? We do often do cremations for pets when they pass, and basically the cremation remains that you get back are essentially bones, just in kind of a powdered form. So to have the actual skeleton isn't so unusual, and they're really beautiful and they really are meaningful to people. So I really enjoy doing pet memorial work.
That's awesome. So do you do cats and dogs?
I do. I have a couple of cats and dogs that I'm working on right now, and it's always really nice to connect with the owners and to help them, you know, as part of their grieving process.
That's amazing. You really have done such a nice job there.
Oh, thanks.
Carla, I love talking with you. This was so fun.
Thank you so much.
So much. Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being my my victim.
No, thank you. It's really exciting to catch up with you and to have an opportunity to talk to everyone.
Cool. Well, I will share this recording with you and with all of you after this. After we stop this interview, but best of luck with everything. I've followed you everywhere, and I love sharing your business as well. So I will do that to my community. But I wish you all the best in your business growth, and I can't wait to the point where you get the side gig completely gone. But I really appreciate your time, and it's all so beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. It really means a lot coming from you, and I'm excited to see where your business goes too.
I am teaching up a storm, but
awesome. I bet.
Thanks so much, Carla. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.